Hi everybody, and welcome to the first Azure Sales Fundamentals course run by Kenny Koh here at Exeed. We'd just like to welcome you all to this live presentation. There'll be another 2 or 3 of these over the coming days that will load up into our My Cloud Store site. So welcome, and as far as things going for Exeed at the moment, My Cloud Store is business as usual, so the team is all on deck and ready to assist and help you with any of the cloud services. I'd like to hand over to Kenny Koh, who will take you through the first course of the SMB Sales Fundamentals. Thanks, Kenny.
Thank you, Simon. Welcome everybody to this Azure CSP SMB Sales Fundamentals workshop. I know we were supposed to have a workshop on site at Exeed for this, but due to the COVID-19 situation, we've decided to make 4 modules online to be sent out as webinars, just running on Teams Live here. This video will mainly help CSP reseller partners and their sales teams to be able to sell Azure better. That's the end goal. Is I want to be able to enable you to think cloud solutions and how you can help your customers get the deal. Let's start. So module 1 is understanding digital transformation in Azure, adopting the correct cloud mindset. Today we'll be covering enable digital transformation, introduction to Azure and benefits, customer profiling, introduction to the cloud adoption framework, as well as Azure as the most trusted cloud. Now, digital transformation. What is digital transformation? Digital transformation is when you move a business process into the digital world. Something like automating labor in the factory, or moving handwritten orders at the restaurants into a tablet. That's sort of an example of digital transformation. The digital transformation usually involves IT infrastructure like server and networking equipment. There's also computers that the end users would use. These are your typical IT infrastructure. How does this relate to the cloud? Now, by moving the services into the cloud, instead of owning the traditional IT infrastructure, what will happen is you are owning the services that are sitting on the IT infrastructure. So what this will allow you to do is convert your capital expenses to operational type expenses. On the cloud, you buy services in forms of something as a service, like software as a service, infrastructure as a service, platform as a service. These are the typical examples, but I mean there are a lot of them out there, but these are the main examples we'll be sort of covering today on Azure. So moving to the cloud, one way of enabling digital transformation is by moving the services into the cloud. This will help you transform your products by applying innovation, optimize your operation work by letting someone else look after the infrastructure while you focus on the important things, which is the services that sits on top of the infrastructure. This also empowers your employees by granting them mobility and flexibility to work to achieve their goals, as well as allows you to engage your customers and figure out what they need to perform better in their business to achieve better outcomes from their businesses. So right now it's a bit of a journey. There's a bit of a shift in IT culture that is happening today. Today we are more worried about how IT can enhance the customer's experience, rather than just focusing on just getting the technology up and running, right? It's more about outcomes today rather than the process. The new culture drives us to challenge and innovate, becoming more proactive on our engagement. driving success as a team, as well as to move quickly and to learn from our mistakes quickly as well. This sort of helps you change the way you're thinking when you're approaching IT going forward. By adopting the cloud mindset, you're focused on not just how to deploy and provision the IT solution, but how it's actually consumed by the customer, by the end user, or by the services. Instead of stockpiling resources and leaving it there, not doing anything in advance, with the cloud, you only consume and pay for what you really need to use. That's the whole idea of the cloud. It's that you don't need to be buying equipment thinking 5 years up front, saying, oh, you gotta project your growth 5 years up front. What you're doing is you're buying resources that you're actually consuming today and paying for that. Azure allows you to scale on demand without any lead time. So this is the core reason why you're able to do a consume and pay for what you need instead of needing to book the resources up front. This gives you the ability to automate and quickly develop processes to deliver the product to your customer as well. That's the main ideas around that. This is a graph of the 2019 revenue forecast for cloud consumption. In 2019, there's a projected forecast of 17.3% revenue growth across all industries, with software as a service being the biggest chunk of the pie, and IaaS and PaaS sort of taking up the other half of that platform, that pie. Migration to Azure helps with digital transformation. By going to Azure, you obtain advanced software capabilities that will drive new scenarios and opportunities for the business. With the tools on security and monitoring, Azure allows you to grow into markets and industries that are normally quite hard to get into, because there's just so many walls to try and climb over. There are a lot of examples in Azure. Well, there are a lot of tools in Azure that allows you to sort of build products that lets you break into those markets. Developing products on Azure allows you and your customer to reach out across different geographical borders as well. So you're no longer tied to just doing business in New Zealand. What the cloud allows you to do is develop products that can be consumed across the world and sell to a global market. So scaling out into the global market. Introduction to Azure. So what is Azure? Now, that's a good question. Azure is Microsoft's platform and infrastructure as a service offering. That's a short answer, right? The way I would like to think Azure is, I would like to say Azure is like a toolbox that has a lot of different tools that enable you to build a product that you can bring to market or you can consume, right? I like the analogy of a bakery. So Azure is the shop that has all of the tools, like the oven, the mixer, the utensils to make the goods, which is the service and the product that you're making out of it. You use a combination of these tools, like the Azure Backup, Azure VMs. These are your examples of the ovens and mixers and utensils, and you build your solution, which is your end product, your bread or your cake or your pie, right? Consistency, trying to achieve consistency with Azure is dependent on the experience that you have on making the products. Just the same as how a baker would gain experience baking the same goods every day, there is a chance that you will achieve consistency by just doing the same thing over and over again. But there's also sometimes you would need to do some research or purchase newer tools to improve your product or enhance your offering, Azure is basically that. It enables you to build your business with a whole bunch of tool sets. On Azure, these tools come in the form of a hosted platform or hosted infrastructure services. That's, in other words, IaaS and PaaS. So infrastructure as a service, I'll go into detail on what this is. Infrastructure as a service is how you build virtual infrastructure in Azure. It's similar to traditional servers on premises or co-located, but it's sitting in the cloud, basically. It requires, because of this tie, it requires the least amount of skill change an engineer requires to be able to go into the cloud. Microsoft manages the hardware, so they look after the tin that the virtual infrastructure sits on. The provider, the cloud provider will then, or the cloud consultant will then look after the operating system for patching and security. So you look after what sits on the hardware, the virtual infrastructure, so the VMs or the networking infrastructure that you need to look after. Azure allows you to scale your virtual machines or change the sizes depending on the requirements that you need. It's basically, Azure has a lot of the resources available, and if your requirements change from day to day or month to month, you're allowed to change the virtual hardware that you're using by just redeploying the services into the different hardware or changing it within the virtual machine itself. This is a key component to what Azure enables companies to do, the flexibility that it lets you build your offering around. There are also advantages in the tools provided for management, monitoring, and backups of the services on Azure. It's sort of, think of Azure as a big community. There's a big community within Azure that sort of ties into each other. The example is like services like Azure Monitor and Azure Backup. It sort of is built to leverage these services across all of the other services that are offered on Azure. This is why Azure is sort of one of the leaders in the market in infrastructure as a service and platform as a service at the moment. Now, what is platform as a service? Platform as a service, or PaaS, a lot of people like to shorten it to something called PaaS. It allows you to purchase services on the platform without worrying about looking after the operating system or the machines hosting them. Basically, you don't need to worry about patching or antivirus or or the likes. It allows you to focus on the important things, which is the service that is actually sitting on the platform. Like if you got a database, you only need to worry about your database. You don't worry about the SQL server that is hosting your database. Or if you want to host desktop as a service type offering like Windows Virtual Desktop. So let's say you want to host Windows 10, right? You don't really want to worry about how to provision the Windows 10 devices. You don't want to worry about how the users are going to access to the Windows 10. You worry about the Windows 10 machine itself. You worry about the software that runs on a Windows 10 machine. You let the PaaS platform or Windows Virtual Desktop worry about the infrastructure that enables access to the Windows Virtual Desktop. These are your core examples of platform as a service. You would look at Azure Files, Azure Backups, and Azure Storage Accounts as key examples to platform as a service as well. These are just tools that allow you to focus on the important things, basically. PaaS, the other advantage to PaaS is that because it always runs on multi-tenanted environments, it allows you to share the compute resources on the tin with other consumers. What this means is that you're only paying for the portion of resources that you use, not reserving an entire host or entire VM and just leaving it sitting there, not really efficient, not really running efficiently. You're sort of optimizing the consumption as much as you can, therefore reducing the amount of cost that you would incur. These are the key components for Azure Platform as a Service. So why do we choose Azure? Why not the competitive products? I don't really want to mention about them there because today we're talking about Microsoft. Azure has a vast set of IaaS and PaaS services that are integrated into each other, and it's also integrated into a lot of corporate companies in the world. The key difference of Azure compared to the rest of its competition is the integration to Azure AD and Office 365. The uptake on Office 365 is huge these days, especially in the corporate world, especially in the SMB market. People see Office 365 as the key software as a service offering that sort of changed the industry. Now, Azure plays very well with Azure AD or Azure Active Directory, which is what Office 365 sits on. Basically, the identity that you use on Office 365 is in Azure Active Directory. Azure builds itself around that. The toolset of Azure allows companies to be productive as well by scaling when required, deploying intelligence by utilizing data analytics to develop insights, as well as to gain advantage over the competition with that insight. Azure is the front runner in both on-premises and on the cloud solutions. So hybrid cloud or hybrid cloud solutions is becoming the norm today. Microsoft has acknowledged this. Instead of unlike some of the competition that is quite hard-headed about its ways on being cloud only, offering very limited compatibility to connecting back into the legacy systems on premises. Azure takes the other approach where it assumes that a majority of the customers would still want some way or another to have a way of connecting back into the on-premises or the co-located data center. This is a key difference that has seen Azure growing into what it is today. Azure is currently one of the most trusted cloud available. We'll get into this at the end of this module. There's going to be a big section about this. Now, what are the business values of Azure? So how do we take this information and build it into a sales sort of sales advantage or sales conversation you can have with your customers? So, I would always like to say, if done correctly, Azure actually allows you to save on cost. This is different to what a lot of people are saying out there, and that's primarily because optimization is not happening when they're moving into Azure. What we're seeing at the moment is people are lifting and shifting their legacy on-premises solutions or systems into the cloud by just lifting it up and just dumping their VMs into the cloud. This has a lot of inefficiencies that gets brought into the cloud along with it. I mean, the traditional mindset has always been, you buy the resources, you buy the hardware, and that's hardware that you've got for 5 years forecasting up front. There's a lot of wasted resources that are sitting. So a lot of the VMs that are coming from on-premises are not optimized, they're not tweaked and hardened. Once you've gone through the optimization practice, so this is what I recommend to a lot of MSPs out there, is build your practice around optimizing to Azure. This will then save the cost for your customers, but it will also sort of show them that you're thinking about them, you're thinking about their business, and you actually understand their day-to-day, the operational business, and by showing them that you can optimize, it means that you understand their business, you understand how they function and how they want to work. So the best way to optimize is always, consume what is required, only consume, only deliver, only provision what you need to consume. Azure allows near instant provisioning with automation, so there's no actual need to provision additional resources months in advance. At the most you should be doing is provision additional resources to a month in advance, so weeks rather than months or years. With automation, you can actually deliver solutions quickly without needing to sort of do a bespoke type solution. You can do solutions that can be repeated across multiple customers, across different platforms. You can sort of deliver it in a more timely fashion. Azure has a lot of tools and channels that allows you to achieve that. It's also known for its performance and its ability to scale. But one of the main things about Azure is the security and compliance with its data centers, its platforms, security audits that it does, that Microsoft does, and the amount of money they pour into security every year is key to the way Azure is currently developed. Azure is also a tool to enable new capabilities. So we're talking about data science here. We're talking about big data, data analytics, machine learning, AI. This is core to a lot of businesses, because traditionally, and especially in the SMB market, businesses have never really looked into data analytics. The world is changing, basically. In order for the customers to find an edge over other customers, their competition, data analytics needs to be deployed. You need to figure out what you're selling, what other people are selling, and how you're doing better, and exploit that, or cut down on what you're not doing as well as the other people. This is key to figuring that out, understanding your business, helping your customers understand their business as well. Now, Azure is the only consistent, comprehensive hybrid cloud. Microsoft has understood that no matter what, there's still some on-premises infrastructure, as what I said before, and they're going to be a while. It's going to be a while before we will get rid of that. There's always going to be legacy applications that won't go away, and that's sort of the reason why there's a lot of RDS solutions out there, and that's always around. There's an old legacy application that can't go into Windows 10 or Windows 2016. You've got to put it on an older server like a Windows 2012 R2 server. You chuck it up on Azure and you put it on RDS, and that's because 20 users, maybe only 5 users need to access that application. So you're trying to save cost there as well. Microsoft understands that. They see that as a very common use case. Therefore, they've developed Azure in the mindset for hybrid cloud, hybrid collaboration with the on-premises. So what they've done as well is they've sort of built tools in Azure that maps to the on-premises equivalent. So what you got is services up here in the cloud that maps the services down here, their equivalents. Key example, the easiest example is the Azure Active Directory and the on-premise Active Directory. You link them together with Azure AD Connect. And that's one of the main tools that allows a business to sort of achieve hybrid. So Azure and availability. Azure is now available 54 regions worldwide, with the closest to us being Australia. Most of the Azure solutions that will be developed in New Zealand would be to Australia. That's only to reduce the latency between New Zealand and Australia and accessing. But what this means, though, 54 regions worldwide means that you can build, or you can help your customer build a business that can reach the other side of the world. You're not just limited to New Zealand anymore. You can achieve a lot more with Azure. Now, someone was talking to me the other day, and they were saying that they need to get some Linux and open source tools, and they were asking if Azure. They were actually surprised when I mentioned it to them that Azure works with Linux. You can put Linux VMs or Linux servers on Azure. It's not just limited to Linux or Red Hat or BSD. If you want a solution like an Oracle database that you have on premises, you can't. Well, you can either translate that into a SQL database, or a MySQL database, or alternatively, you could actually deploy an Oracle Linux VM and put the Oracle database on the Oracle Linux VM. So there are a lot of options here. It's not that it's a Microsoft offering that you have to use Windows. That's not the case. There are a lot of open source tools that gives you and opens up access to the rest of the world. So there's a big uptake in DevOps at the moment with DevOps projects. Azure has Azure DevOps that allows you to sort of link some of these DevOps tools into Azure DevOps and sort of allows you to connect into different platforms as well. It's something that a lot of teams should be looking into for automation around the cloud. So how do you build, and as a managed partner, how do you build an offering to take advantage of Azure, around Azure? How do you build a business around Azure? This is sort of an example that I would like to give to a lot. Well, that I give to a lot of my partners. What you want to do is sort of take it as a journey with the customer. Take them on a ride, right? You approach them and you have the initial discussion about the assessment and the migration of whatever they have in their on-premises equipment. You look at their infrastructure at the moment and you see what's happening, or they might be coming to you. Both ways. It works both ways. The scenario could be that we're approaching end of life, and one of the option is to buy equipment, IT infrastructure, and have it sitting there for the next 5 years, or Sorry, I got muted there, so I'll just jump back onto this a little bit. We'll start from the slide again. Yeah, I was talking about building an offering, well, building your managed services offering around Azure. So basically, you would normally start with an assessment and migration piece. So approach the customers and see, how to move their environments into the cloud, how to lift and shift and optimize based on the amount of resources. So this is what I'm talking about. You do an optimization for resource optimization here, and then you build your operational services on top of it. So a lot of managed services would have this. This is your typical 8x5 or 24x7 offering, where you're looking after the health of the IT services for the customer. Azure has all these tools that gives you the ability, like Azure Monitor, for example, lets you hook into a lot of the services that you build on Azure, and it sort of allows you to proactively manage the environments for the customers. There's a lot of other things like security. You build into the Azure Security Center that allows you to achieve certain securities around the services that are hosted in the cloud as well. The workload optimization that we talk about here, so this is slightly different to resource optimization. And it also involves reducing cost, but it's not just that. So when we talk about workload optimization, we talk about sort of changing the type of service that is being consumed. So if let's say there's a database sitting on a VM, a SQL database sitting on a VM, a dedicated VM, you're pretty much dedicating a VM for that one use, for that one core business function, which is for the SQL database. Instead of doing that, you could migrate the database into Azure SQL, which is platform as a service. Then you're sharing the workload, you're sharing the VM with other people in the tenancy, and you're sort of reducing the amount of unneeded resources on standby. Another example for workload optimization is sort of, the classic example actually is, you've got an application sitting on RDS. The reason the application sits on RDS is because it's an old application and it needs to be running on Windows 2012, and it needs to be running exclusively like a native application, an exe file, right? Instead of doing that, a potential offering could be working together with the application developer and helping them move the application into the cloud by adopting, application modernization standards like containerization or using Azure Functions to only do Azure processing and detaching the application from its native legacy use. This sort of service is being taken up more and more coming up, because people are seeing the cost of running an RDS environment just because of one application. You would actually reduce that quite a bit by running these kind of services. Now the top and sort of big boy end game kind of offering that I see is a big potential in the market here is the proactiveness. Basically, it's in the end of the day, IT is there to improve a business, right? What can we use IT for if not to make businesses perform better and make more money? In the end of the day, it's all about the money, right? With advanced managed services like big data or BI, business insights, analytics, DevOps and IoT, AI and machine learning. These tools help customers figure out their business, figure out their competition, help you build advantages for your customers. Therefore, if they grow, you as a managed service provider will grow along with them. It also builds experiences that you can get within your organization to help entire industries as well. So this is an advantage that you can get out of Azure. Now, let's talk about customers. Let's talk about how getting to know your customers and how important it is when dealing with sales, especially sales around Azure. You need to know your customers. How do you know your customers? After all, like, when we know our customers, we'll be more aligned to the solutions that they will need. They will be more accepting of your solution if you understand their needs and provide a solution based on their needs. So here are key focus areas that I personally like to sort of approach when I'm approaching the customers. I want to understand, profile the customer before approaching them, before talking to them. I want to know, who is this customer? What industry do they belong to, and what are the typical markets the industry runs in? Who are their target customers? How do they consume the services? What do they use IT for? How do they understand IT? Their maturity for the cloud as well. Do they understand cloud consumption-based services like the power bill analogy? Cloud consumption or consumption-based service is like a power bill, right? Whether the customer knows that there are no 2 months that are the same. Every month is going to be different because of the different number of days. It's also the amount of bandwidth that is consumed, the amount of resources that are consumed is always different no matter what. So there are not going to be any 2 days that are the same. Figure out if the customer is understanding of this, and whether they are accepting of the ideas. If they're not, it doesn't mean that you can't work with them. If they're not, it just means that you've got to change your managed service offering to fit their requirements. And there'll be other modules covering this, but if you want to, come talk to me directly on this. I've spoken to a lot of partners around sort of rebuilding your managed service offering for customers to prevent things like bill shocks and consumption overload and things like that. Identifying the decision maker in the customer company, that's key. What you want to always do is find out who makes the decisions. This person might not be the person that champions cloud or champions IT, but it's definitely the person that is that will be key to sort of strategize and bring on board, for your sale. Recognizing who the cloud motivators, who basically cloud motivators are champions that sort of, the idea is finding who will gain most out of going into the cloud or adopting Azure, or who will gain most out of adopting that IT solution. Those are your key cloud motivators. You need to identify them to make sure that they align to the decision makers, or somehow you can influence them to align to the key decision makers. Lastly, you need to find out who are your blockers, people who are against IT or people who are eccentric towards IT or towards the cloud, what you want to do is find out why and sort of see if you can buy them over. I'm not saying bribing them or anything, but more understanding their reasons to blocking and trying to unblock those potential blockers. Those are the key approaches that I take when approaching a customer. So here are main powerful questions to ask when you're profiling your customers. Like, do you have concerns on having your critical business data on legacy software? That's a very easy one to ask, right? What happens if that once Windows 2008, HTML 110, from 2015 or 2012, sitting in the cupboard there? What happens if that box breaks? What happens if the disk on it breaks? We'll have to go to backup. What happens when it takes 3 days to restore from backup? Things like that. It's key questions to enable you to sort of, these questions bring up the light bulb in the customer's head. It sort of brings to their attention the awareness they need to have on Azure, well, on the IT equipment, on the IT solutions, and they will help you understand and develop the appropriate solution for those customers. Are you able to get business insight from the data captured in your organization? This is what I was talking about with data analytics before. This would give you, and your customer advantages if you build BI solutions to bring in insights and give them the advantage in their market platform. How fast can your organization react on new business opportunities? A good example for this kind of situation is like the whole COVID-19 situation we're having right now. Microsoft Teams adoption has gone up by almost 300% across the platform. We're also seeing a huge adoption in Windows Virtual Desktop at the moment. How fast can your business as an MSP or your business as the client's business, your client's business as whatever they're doing, how fast can they react to the organization, to the new business opportunities or new events that happens? Do they need to react fast, or are they just in the business for just dealing with whatever they're currently doing with their customers? A lot of these questions, what we'll do is we'll issue. I'll send out the slide deck at the end of this together with the video. And what you can do is have a read through these questions and see if they actually assist you in your endeavors. Common cloud concerns or blockers when talking to your customers. The one I like the most is, I'm not sure we have the budget for this. We can't afford moving into Azure. It costs too much. It's not. That's not true. Actually, there are cost savings to infrastructure, and these are the resource optimization that we always talk about. I mean, obviously, if the customer is already optimized, then it's quite hard. But then we start talking about Azure being an enabler. Provides more opportunities and gives you additional access to things that you wouldn't normally have on premises. Things like monitoring, things like analytics. These are your key components. Again, we'll hand out the slide deck after the webinars anyway, so you can have another read on these. These are very handy to have. One thing I would like to bring up though is the cloud adoption framework. Now, this is a big thing that Microsoft came up with recently. The Microsoft Cloud Adoption Framework for Azure. It's basically a guide to help you create and implement the business and technology strategies necessary for your organization to succeed in the cloud. What I would like to say for this line, it's basically, if you adopt and understand the cloud adoption framework and you bring your customers on board and adopt the cloud adoption framework, or whoever the IT enablers are in the customer, and then you're sort of setting yourself up to be on the same wavelength as that customer. You talk the talk, you're talking the same talk, same language. This helps you gain that synergy with that customer. What it is it's sort of a guide that helps you plan a journey and take the customers on board with you on that journey step by step, so that they know and they understand where they're at on that journey. The cloud adoption framework is a framework built to enable you to help you manage that kind of relationship with that customer. This is sort of a graphical view of what the cloud adoption framework is. It's in the initial pages of the adoption framework. This is what I'm talking about, the journey that you see. If you have a look on the left side, the defined strategy, and then there's the planning and the readiness and the adoption. So these are your step-by-step guides, your step-by-step movements that you and your customer can take together. They don't need to lose track. They don't need to get to misunderstand and go missing. Right? This enables you to sort of keep them on track and keep them vested in the journey. Why do we want to do the cloud adoption framework? Well, I've just pretty much said it before. There's nothing much to say, right? It creates a process for you and your customers to follow. For more information about it, have a look at the link, or if you search for it, do a search for Microsoft Cloud Adoption Framework for Azure. And I advise you to read through it or breeze through it at least, give it a once over, have a high level understanding on its practice and its processes, and get your customers to understand that too. Once they do, you would find that it will be very easy to talk to about cloud adoption technologies and projects. Azure is the most trusted cloud. So this is a very bold statement that Microsoft makes. Azure is the most trusted cloud. One of the very common topics that come up during my conversations with partners is, it's a public cloud. How safe is it, right? What about Azure? Is it any different to it? I'd like to make another analogy. I like a lot of these analogies, and this is something I've heard from a session with a trainer previously. Think of public cloud. Think of Azure as a hotel building. It's a hotel, right? And it's got many rooms. It's got many customers. Each room, you have a set amount of furniture. Some equipped with better furniture, some are not. Some rooms are bigger, some are smaller. Right? It depends on who the customer is that wants to stay in that room. If they have more people, then they get a bigger room. If they have less people, they get a smaller room. If they have many people, then they have multiple rooms. That's sort of that analogy I like to make. But in terms of security, this is where this analogy bears its fruit. Each room in the hotel room is separated by walls. So that's basically your security blockers, or your security policies and processes within Azure. Azure's developed in the way where no customer within one room can access another room through that wall. That wall is there to protect your belongings within that room. What you can do is, if you have legitimate access to that room, you will access it through the door and you will use your swipe card. This is sort of mapped to Azure AD and the role-based access controls that you can apply to your Azure AD. Or for Azure storage accounts, it's your Azure storage account key for accessing the data on the Azure storage account. It's the same concept. If you can trust yourself living in a hotel, then you can trust yourself living, putting your data on Azure. It's basically built around the same concept. Now, what do we, what details do we have to back this up? Azure is the best security. Azure has unmatched security. Microsoft spends $1 billion on annual investments into security for their cloud infrastructure, on their cloud system. So it's not just Azure, it's across Office 365 as well. It's also across Dynamics 365 as well. They hired 3,500 security experts across all of their companies, across all of their regions. And there's, they look at trillions of diverse signals of security insights and operations. Why? Another reason for why they're trusted and most compliant cloud. This is due to the big and comprehensive compliance offering that Azure has across multiple regulated industries. Microsoft adopts the trusted, responsible, and inclusive cloud model. Basically, these are the examples of these are like the GDPR compliance, NIST compliance, ISO 27001 compliance. With your solution built on Azure, you can achieve those compliance by developing your solution on that. But be assured that the underlying infrastructure that you're building your solutions on have compliance, are being audited all the time. Your solution still needs to be developed, though. That's why it's an inclusive cloud trust model. What that means is, the infrastructure and whatever is being looked after by Microsoft, its compliance to security is being handled by Microsoft. Right? If you have a software as a service that you're buying from Microsoft, the software as a service infrastructure is being security is being handled by Microsoft. But if you're doing a solution on Azure, a bespoke solution on Azure, where you put you utilize infrastructure as a service or platform as a service, you need to ensure that the design that you build conforms to whatever security industry practice that you need to conform to. Azure has guidance and help to assist you in achieving all of that. These are also the principles that you would get, like security. Azure implements industry-leading secure software development practices. These are for a lot of the services that they provide. Azure is always in compliant with a lot of compliance requirements across different institutions and countries. Azure is vested in privacy policies, especially around public cloud. Azure is also, this note here, Azure is the first major cloud provider to adopt ISO 27018. This is the world's first international standard for cloud privacy. Azure is always taken, Microsoft's always taken the first step in ensuring the security of its cloud offering. The privacy statement from Microsoft here is there's a lot of customers that are asking our partners. I've gotten quite a few of these questions recently. Have a look at the privacy statement link. If the customers are in certain industries that require information about that, this will help you answer those questions. There's also the Trust Center. So if you need to know the audits that Microsoft has done, specific audits or based on your roles as well, they can give you the information based on different roles that you have or your customer has in your company. If there's a security auditor that comes in, and you might want to give them the compliance certificates that Microsoft has on their cloud products, log into the Trust Center and get all of that information there. It's all available. Here's an example of what it looks like on a high level. You can, there's a lot of different drop downs, a lot of information to be obtained from these places. The Service Trust Portal is tied to the Trust Center. It's a little bit different. It's also where you get your audit reports, but more than that, it allows you to go in and pull in, like run the compliance. You can do things like running the compliance manager against your Office 365 tenant, and it'll tell you how compliant it is against a certain certification or requirements. This portal will allow you to do a lot of that. Microsoft has the industry-leading security capabilities. That's pretty much what it is. Microsoft focuses on the four major parts, which is visibility, context, expertise, and experience for security. These are your key examples to how they deliver these capabilities by delivering these products. New security capabilities that are deployable on Microsoft Azure. Azure Firewall allows you to deploy actual technical infrastructure security. Azure Security Center is a portal that lets you review your environment, your entire Azure tenant, and it provides some recommendations to what you can do. It's similar to the Azure Advisor. Azure Advisor is built around Security Center is one of its key components. But Security Center obviously looks at your VMs and looks at your resources and sort of tells you what you need to look out for. If the users, if key users that have a certain level of access do not have MFA enabled, it would trigger and tell you, hey, you need to have a look at this. It's quite important. So it's basically industry practices. That's security on Azure. What we will have up next tomorrow on Module 2, we will talk about Azure CSP. So Azure on Microsoft CSP, which all of you would be involved with. I will talk about the differences between the EA, the CSP, and the pay-as-you-go for Azure. We will talk about how do we price up Azure solutions, efficiently. How do we get it correct, or as correct as we can? Because you can never get an exact figure. There's no such thing as a quotation for Azure. It's an estimate, right? But it's more about getting the estimates as close as possible to reality. What happens after you deploy the solution? So, you know, you've deployed the solution. What about operation? What do we look out for in operation? I will also talk about the sales programs that we can get for, as being a CSP partner. There's some enablers that allow you to achieve the sale, or sort of bring to your customer and help you sell to your customers. We will go into a little bit of information about that. Tomorrow will be a good session. I'm hoping a lot of you will join. If not, these are being recorded live anyway, and we will send them out. Yeah, are there any? Well, we've got a Q&A session here, section here, or any questions that might come up. If there's any questions, just feel free to add them in. I'll probably give it 2 minutes, and we'll see if there's if we get any questions pop up. Yeah, if there's no questions, then what we will do is we will end this session for today, and we will resume tomorrow.